Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining Basement Flavor. We got Mr. Mortal over here producing the show, bringing in some fly guests. This is number 5. We've had Last Emperor, Master Ace, Wordsworth, Binkus Rex, and now we have the one and only J to the Z to the O-N-E.
What's up, fellas?
Glad to have you here, man.
Salute.
Hey, thanks for having me, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah. So tonight, you know, I just want you to know, we're gonna acknowledge this. We're gonna acknowledge.
Okay.
But we ain't gotta stay there though, you know, like, but I feel it's important.
Okay.
You know, we're gonna hit the books.
Okay.
Listen. We might hit this. Right? and then we'll get to the current, man.
Okay.
Welcome to Basement Flavor.
So you know, Mortal and I all day. I'm aware of the Du-Rites, and we'll get back to the proper beginning of this. But I haven't sat down and just let it go for hours on end. It's so good, man. Like,
thank you, man. We appreciate it.
It's amazing. Like house cleaning, napping, chilling music. You know what I mean? And like, we'll get back to this, but man, it sounds like movie soundtrack shit. You know,
yeah,
it's so good, man. I appreciate it so much.
Thank you, man.
So we're getting you some. We're getting you some Spotify.
Yeah, man. We're trying to get a hold of that. I'm not really on the Spotify thing yet, but I've been monitoring and figuring out how it works. You know, there's not much money, but there's other things like we've, you know, shows or somebody call you, like you said, like, can you score the music for this movie or for this TV show?
Yeah,
they become aware of you through Spotify. So it's really more for awareness.
Yeah,
for people who normally wouldn't go spend $25 to pick up the album, the LP, or go to Bandcamp. That's a limited thing. So they'll just stumble upon it, but then they might want to be like, hey, we're gonna do the next season of this Netflix series, and we want you to, you know, that's what Spotify is good for. Danger Mouse is a good friend of mine, and he's been really looking out, putting us on his playlist, because I learned that playlist is the way that you get out of the zero play territory, like you finally start. Yep. So we figured that out, and Danger Mouse has been really dope. With me and him go back 20 years. You know, we were in hip hop together. I do session drums for him now. He's been helping to Du-Rites. So we have like, you know, we've been always like working together throughout all the phases of our careers. So that's dope that he helped us get off the Spotify donut.
Right. That's a good way to put it. Yeah, because you notice when you go to you know, certain artists or whatever, they'll have a song, you know, maybe it's, you know, a couple thousand, and then one song will have like 100
million. Yeah.
Right, a million.
Yeah. No, it's the same with us. We did a remix for Ghostface Killer, and obviously that's our biggest song. They're like, of course, this is Ghostface. You know what I'm saying?
Because it's right. Yeah.
People just looking for Ghostface, they're gonna find it. So it's like, or if you just get one song on a playlist, or it gets used on a TV show, that's it. You know,
boom.
So that's and it might not even be your quote unquote hit. It just may be something that the right person discovers with the right playlist.
Yeah.
So
it even on that note too, I wonder like coffee shops and shit like that, like where they just have these things looping every day. You know what I mean? They got a certain playlist going.
Yeah, and you know it starts to accumulate the plays. So we just want to get it out there, man. And it's obviously you can't monetize it all that much, but I mean I'm really happy with being an artist in current times. It doesn't seem like it's good, but from somebody who's been around since the 90s and knows how things were, it's harder to stand out, but you don't have as many gatekeepers, and you can kind of just do your thing. You don't have to worry about being pigeonholed and where am I going to fit in. And we were trying to get our music into chain, because, you know, in the early 2000s, After artists started doing well on labels like Stone's Throw or Fat Beats or Rhyme Set, then it was like, we want to get our stuff in Tower Records, Virgin Megastore. So, but there was no YouTube. So if you didn't have money to get on MTV, your CD is in Tower Records for $20 next to Jay-Z, and you have no promotion. And then years later, you get 5,000 CDs returned to your doorstep. So it was kind of like, now it's kind of like you have your Bandcamp. I do everything from my office, and you can be in touch. You kind of have to be in touch with your audience. Like, I'm shipping records to the people that like the stuff. Like, oh yeah, you bought the record. I know you. That's just
it's not going to come back.
Yeah, like you used to write a fan. I'm gonna write to King's Son, so you write to the fan club on the back of the album, and you never meet King's Son, but you hope you get a letter back. Now it's a different game, but I mean, I kind of dig it, because you have more control over your music and over how your music is put out there.
Double-edged sword. So the production costs that artists used to pay ridiculous, triple of what it really cost them, like in those deals. Like, now you can just put your stuff online. So someone like me, who I like to support dope artists. Like, if I like something, I'm find it and buy it. Being where I'm at, it's hard to sift through and find the stuff that we want. You know what I mean?
It's harder because there's just so much of it. And you used to go to a Fat Beats or an Amoeba or whatever, and you would have radio shows, even like Stretch and Bob or Sunset and Mayhem in New York. We had these shows, and it was kind of curated for us. But now it's kind of, I guess, the Spotify playlist, but then not everything is on Spotify, and a lot of stuff is on Bandcamp, and you have to sift through all this. There's something for everybody. You just got to work a lot harder.
Right.
To find it. Like, people say, oh, music is dead. Like, no, it ain't. There's good music of all genres. And it's like, that's why I don't get caught up in like nostalgia. Oh, I got to go back to the night. If you like that kind of music, there's people still making that kind of music. It's just
look at Tribe Called Quest record in 2016.
Yeah, exactly.
You still, I wouldn't call that let's go back to the 90s.
No,
that was
it's modern. It's modern with some of the aesthetics of, that kind of what made that stuff dope, but you have to live in the present, and you have to reflect the times. It has to reflect the times. I mean, until we all start using payphones again, you have to live in the present. So you just want to take the integrity of a certain era and insert it into the modern context. That's like, even us, we're obviously a funk band, Du-Rites, so all the 60s and 70s stuff is the motor that gets us going, but we're in 2020. So if we want to put out a 45, the A-side might have a drum miking that sounds like it's from the 60s, and the B-side might have a disco sound from like 79. So the eras don't have to match, it's just Du-Rites.
Right.
We're not caught up in like, we got to make this sound like a record that came out in 1969. Like, one day we might sound like, 1984. You know what I'm saying? And then the other side, like, this sound like 1965, and put them on the same record, because you have the capability to do that now. And, and we're influenced by so much. So instead of trying to copy something, it's just like we allow the influences to take us. And you can have jazz influences and funk and even hip hop and new wave, and you can create something new, because in 30 years, they're going to look back to now. And if you look back to now and it's nothing but a rehash of 50 years back, then this whole time period is kind of erased. There's nothing to make it, stand out on its own. So I'm
sure you remember once we got into the mid 90s, we weren't just putting funky drummer in a track. You didn't hear the loop anymore. You heard the chops.
Yeah, exactly. They weren't, they were chopping break beats. And then, like, I always say, like, people always say they want to go back to the 90s, but the era you're trying to emulate, they weren't like, let's take it back to Cold Crush. They were inspired by Cold Crush, but they weren't like, they weren't like, let's take Good Times and loop it up and do what Big Bang Hank did. It was kind of like, no, or even in between 1988 and 94, like, then it became about really obscure jazz records. It was like, we're not going to use the standard James Brown to break beats and stuff. We're going to go to a jazz type of thing. So it's
Yep.
It's always been growing. So I just think, why now? You know what I mean? Like it might as well keep growing and keep moving forward and embracing the new things that are available to us. You know?
Right. Let's stop right there in the like early mid 90s, right?
Okay.
And let's go here and let's talk about the fact that let's just acknowledge the hip hop part of this career, because I think it's important. I don't want to just be like, oh, you know, that's whatever. I'm not doing that no more. It's good. It entertained us for a long time, yo.
Right.
So,
and that photo was taken right where I'm sitting in the same room. Right there.
There it is.
This used to be my grandmother's room when she was alive. So that was.
Yeah, and God bless her. And also the is that the basement, like where your drums is and all that stuff?
Yeah, that's the basement. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
All right. So I don't know if you can make it out, but we share a couple of pieces up there.
Oh,
it's a little messed up.
The Tannoy reveals, right? Or actives. The Tannoy actives. Yeah. I have those.
I got the active joints, and I got a G3 6 gigabyte hard drive. Mind blowing, right? And I produced a 60-minute album on that 6 gigabyte hard drive.
Yeah.
And I don't. Do you still use your G4 to this day?
Yeah.
There it is. So
I got another one though. I got another G4. My man Sam the sleaze bag gave me his. He was gonna throw it out. I was like, well, I took the drive out of my old one when the motor died, and I took the drive out and put it in his G4 that he never used, and now I'm running on another old G4. But I'm eventually gonna upgrade. Like I'm like that. Like I'll upgrade to the.
Got you.
I just don't want to spend a lot of money on it because Apple, you know how Apple is. They get you. Like once you get in.
We're going through it right now. Like we were trying to upgrade for this whole streaming thing, and I turned my Mac on, and all my plugins don't work no more. Like your software gets out of date. And
yeah.
I hate to say it, but I mean, I've used Apple since the 90s, and it's just getting to that point where you just have to, ask yourself or just realize, look, can I get what I need to get done on this whole technology? Which is what you're doing, right? Like,
that's what you're doing.
What are you using Pro Tools? Like what version?
Pro Tools, 6.2.
6.2, what's the current?
6.2.2.
Is it?
Yeah, it's the same one I got when I bought it in 04. That's what it was. It's been the same Pro Tools ever since. It never bothered me because I started on reel-to-reel, slice and tape, and I started with ADATs. Yeah, and that's like compared to Pro Tools, that's like dinosaur stuff. So it's like I'm like, wow, you can edit digitally, and other people are like, man, you should be on 13.5, and I'm like, well, I'm just happy that I don't have to get a blade out and slice a tape, or I'm not using VHS tapes with all kinds of errors. And, you lose all your I had DA88s. I mean, those things were atrocious, but I was coming out of that world. So just to have a computer editing system, I was like, this is insane. And then that was enough for me, so.
And it gets the job done.
It gets the job done. I don't like to get too caught up in technology because when I'm in the creative side of things, I just want to be creative. I don't want to get caught up in the gear because then once you learn there's like 50 ways to peel an onion, then you're going to be trying to peel an onion 50 ways.
I like that.
It's like, well, maybe if I use this plugin and it's just kind of like make the music and then
I agree with you.
So
I agree.
That's what it was.
Mm-hmm. So, and I want to touch on that note too, because here and on, let me just talk about the beats first, right? Okay. There's two parts of your records, right? There's your sense of humor, which just always translates and you just making people laugh. It sounds like you're entertaining yourself. It sounds like you're trying to make yourself laugh before we get to hear you laugh, before we get to hear the track kind of thing. Right. Like, so I feel that, but you also, and I'm just talking about being frugal, right? You always had extremely banging drums, but really you would cut up like dinner music and like, like records that, like, as we were just saying, like people started looking for obscure jazz records and stuff. I'm not making fun of that. That shit's dope. But they were expensive. You know what I mean?
They were.
And especially once somebody was like, oh, Headhunters. And then all of a sudden that record goes up. You know what I mean? The price. So, I mean, you were cutting up like I said, like old dinner music kind of stuff, old orchestral stuff. You know? Can you speak to, you know, where you would you just grab like a crate of records for like, you know, not one for $1, but like a gang of them? Can you talk about how you would get your records?
Well, when I started, especially with that album, I was still in college. So I didn't have any money, man. Like I was a college student. And once I put that out, I had a couple of thousand in the bank from like working summer jobs. I always had a job. When I was in college, I worked at KB Toys. I worked in the campus bookstore. I worked in the campus bookstore. Where else did I work? I worked in the pool room, the game room with the pool. I always had jobs, so I would, because I had a car and I had a girlfriend. So it's like you had all this stuff in college and you got to have money. So you would always be working.
I've seen your car, dude.
That was around the corner. That wasn't.
I don't know how you were getting around with that.
But I always had, bills to pay. So I always had a job. But then, like when I would save. But then when I was pressing vinyl myself. I didn't have a record deal. I wasn't Raucous, Fat Beats. There was a lot of indie labels or people pressing stuff for people. Even like if you were on a label like a Stone's Throw, you had what's called a P&D, where Land Speed or Fat Beats or Land Speed
distribute for you.
Or like Buds, TRC. Those were the ones that were around. They would press the music for you. So I didn't have that. I was pressing records myself. So once you spend $2,000 to get a 12-inch press, then I had a studio in my basement, so I'm buying equipment. I had no money to buy expensive records. I had like $20. I'm like, okay, I got to go buy records. So I would go to either the Salvation Army or a flea market or yard sales and just get stuff that just had like funny looking covers or just things that were made. And after a while, I would figure out music that was made in a certain period, had a certain texture to it that I might like or whatever. So I would just buy what I could afford. And and then I would just, like you said, I was always into drums, obviously. So I would and I was a bass player before I made music.
But these are like Salvation Army records, my guy. You know what I mean?
It didn't matter to me. I just didn't care.
Everyone knows this one.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Right.
Yeah. But I mean, I would just, like I said, So I mean, I was
stuff like this.
I was before I made beats, I was a bass player. That was my main thing. I played bass for 8 years. So I already had music theory going on and I could hear things. And I had a sense of rhythm because of being a bass player, obviously. And then I was a DJ. So like I knew how to make things groove, regardless of what it was. And as long as it's grooving and as long as it gets some kind of emotion out of the listener, then that's what soul is. And then you make something out of nothing. So whatever I had, I would just play with it and arrange it and bend it and twist it and mix it with other things and add percussive elements to it. Because that music has no groove under it. If you sample that stuff, the drums are either not there or it's timpani.
Way back in the mix.
Yeah, the back, or it's not beat driven. So I had a good sense of groove, so I would get percussive elements together to support it, and then that would be kind of like the melody. And I would create melody out of that. So it was just kind of like you make the most out of it. And I was like I said, I was a bass player, musician before that. So I already had an ear I had perfect pitch. So and I still have perfect pitch. Like you can play a note and I'll tell you what it is, or a chord. So when it came to layering stuff together, it was just pitch. And then the rhythm came from pumping that bass or when I was DJing and then listening to records, and it just happened, man. It was just like, okay, this is what I have. Okay, this is what I have. All right. And then you mix it like a stew and then you do it.
It is dope. But you definitely had a sound. Go ahead, Mort. I'm
sorry.
sorry.
I'm just curious. How did you learn to play the bass?
Self-taught.
Wow. Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Start slapping.
There was a funk band called Slave. And from Dayton, Ohio, Steve Arrington came out of Slave. Their bass player was a guy named Mark Adams. Mark Adams, to me, is the greatest bassist who ever lived. To me, he was like, he had Jaco Pastorius dexterity, but he played funk. Listen to Slave. Go back and listen to, just put it on like Spotify, just put it on loop, and listen to how much of a beast that man was on a bass guitar. And when I discovered that, I was 10 years old. In my parents' record collection. And then I started collecting records to complete my Slave collection in old record stores. And I would play to Cool in the Gang, BT Express, Brass Construction, Slave, Cameo, Parliament, James Brown, Charles Wright, War.
Just playing along.
Like I would play along. I would play by ear. So I would pick things up. Eventually I got into the orchestra. I played stand-up bass and I played jazz bass in the jazz band, but I was self-taught. But I was self-taught with just about everything I did, like because I was an only child. So I didn't have a lot of people around me. So I would just go in my room. That was my escape, like to go in my room.
I understand. Yeah.
Put in time, whether it was the SP1200, the drum set, the bass, the turntables, whatever, or writing, I would lock myself in a room for 6 hours. Like that's how I am. Like when I'm passionate about something, it's like a laser focus. And then I learned that way, you know, listen, over and over.
Listen real quick. Peppermint Gaddy's in the chat. That's Lisa Thurston. I believe you know who that is.
Yeah, that's the homie. Yes, sir. Rochdale. We're good in Rochdale. 11434. We're good, man.
Blah.
Yes, sir.
Salute.
There it is.
Yes, sir.
I had her on the show last week with the rest of the gang. And, we were getting into it, getting behind the scenes and whatnot. And just sharing our stories because there's some overlap in there. So just while we're here, I want to get back to it. But let's just talk real quick about Crazy Eights. And I know you produced that. Can you tell me how that went? Was there a session for this, or was it something that you worked on in pieces? Did you send it off? Like how'd it go?
Well, me and Breeze go way, but Breeze is like my brother because me and Breeze, we didn't grow up together, but we had the same kind of upbringing. Like most kids in Westchester County, where we went to school and grew up, we had family in the boroughs, and our family would send us to Westchester to get away from the boroughs because the schools were better. So he went to school in New Rochelle, and he had roots in New Rochelle, but he was also from the Bronx, and I had roots in I was in Mamaroneck, but my roots are in Jamaica, Queens.
So you were overlapping.
We did, but when we met, and we both loved basketball. So like when we met and we were in the music game, the same scene, Bobito and Footwork and Fappy. So when we met, it was like meeting your long lost brother. So it was always like, we're gonna work together. And we both worked with kids, high school kids and stuff like that. So when we said we was gonna work, and then at the time he was dealing with somebody over in Rochdale Village, which is near me. That's where Jax is from. That's what Lisa, I was saying about Lisa. So he said, I'm coming to Rochdale. I had sent him that beat, and he was like, I want to work on the arrangement. So he came to my basement and we worked on the arrangement, and he was like, well, it's 8 measures per person. And we kind of put it together, and then he flew me in he sent me the vocals, and I pieced it together here, but he helped me, we worked out the arrangement in my basement. Yeah.
And then, it wasn't just one.
Wasn't
just,
No, it was done remotely, but he came through to go over the song. Yeah,
I had because Wordsworth is on here, and we had him a few weeks ago. So I just kind of asked him a little bit about it, or whatever. So do you remember getting like Jack's vocal? Like, were you aware who Jax was?
Oh yeah.
Okay, you already familiar?
Yeah, because I known Jack since maybe 03 because we met, he was a fan, we met at CMJ, I believe, or something like that. And then he was like, yo, we're bumping your stuff down in Atlanta. And
yeah, they were.
The back of my record, you should have it over there, the choir practice. My P.O. box was my local neighborhood in Rochdale Village. And he was like, yo, I'm from Rochdale. And I'm like, get out of here. And then we just became cool because, well, Flux is, I believe, from Laurelton. He's from somewhere over here. And Jax was from Rochdale, which is my neighborhood. So we became, he was in Atlanta, but he's like, yo, I'm from Rochdale. When he would come home and visit his folks, he would stop by my house.
Swing through.
Yeah.
He came up here on one time. He came up and he took the bus up to Boston. I picked him up at the bus station, and we just drove around Boston. And he was playing me Sharper Images, and he had like the steady beat, the serious song, a bunch of stuff. But it was cool, brother. And thank you for sharing that because it ties in with last week's show. We had a great time, and the fact that you're familiar.
Those are my people right there.
Yes, sir. I understand that. Yeah. All right. So you definitely have your sound. I'm glad you described, the process, because it continues throughout everything. Like I feel, this is my opinion. I feel like when I hear your a beat from you, I know it's Jay Zone, just like most of us know a Premier beat, just like that. You know what I mean? It's just, there's something about it, and it usually comes from like, it's not, I'm trying to remember if you've ever looped up something super familiar and didn't mangle it up. I feel like you always make it your own. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that was how I was.
Yeah. So how's it go for you too? Like I mentioned your sense of humor and having fun. Do you typically make a beat and then write the song, or sometimes do you have an idea? Explain your process. At least let's go to Sick of Being Rich.
Okay.
What was your process making these songs here and getting this all together?
Well, at that point, because one thing I didn't mention, I never liked rapping.
Okay.
I was the most reluctant rap.
Why?
MC.
Did you not like your voice? Did you not think
I didn't like my voice? I didn't like my voice. I hated doing shows. Oh. And I was an introvert. I wanted to be a producer. I just wanted to make beats. This goes back to before I made my first record. I got my start interning in recording studios. And
Power Play, right?
Power Play was first, and then Vance Wright, who was Slick Rick's DJ. Rick went to jail.
I got it right in my notes. I wanted to get to that Vance Wright shit.
So when Rick went to prison, Vance opened a studio in New Rochelle, and because I knew how to use an SP1200, I was only 17. I had a job. I was an engineer, and
beautiful.
I was making beats. And my best friend Kevin Barty, he would rhyme, and he was a beast, and we would rhyme together. But I was more into the beats. And I was like, when I get going advances, they would have all kinds of MCs that would come through. And I was like, well, I'm going to give my stuff to them and be a producer. Rappers, they never show up.
Right.
Get to the studio, the session's at 7, it's 11:30. They never showed up.
Right.
And when I got to college, I was working on Music for Tu Madre. It was my senior project for college to graduate from Purchase. And I had people lined up to come in. I had given music, like beats to people, and nobody was showing up. Like the only ones who showed up was Al Sheed. And then Hug.
He was all over the early stuff, right?
And Hug didn't even go to the school. He was friends with this kid, DJ AA, Aaron, who was real nice on the tables. He made beats. He went to the school, and that was his boy from his neighborhood. So he would come visit, and they would rap in his dorm room. And then I was like, hey, you want to get on my album? Yeah, sure. Let me hear the beat. Okay, boom. Okay, write this. And then I had there was 5 or 6 other people I wasn't supposed to be on that record at all. It was supposed to just be my music and other people. And I'd be in the studio like this for hours. Like, yo, where is this dude? And this is before cell phones.
Right.
So you could
can't text them up.
You could use a campus phone and call their apartment. Like, yo, is so and so there? No, he's not here.
Yeah.
That's it. So it was like, well, shit, I'm here. Let me just write something real fast. So I would write stuff, and I would write this outlandish, humorous stuff because it was a joke to me. Like, it was just like, all right, I'll write this dumb rhyme. And I was a writer. I was a creative writing minor, so I was always a writer. But I wasn't a rapper because I wasn't that smooth with delivery. I didn't care for my voice, and doing shows to me was like doing jury duty. Like, I didn't like my worst nightmare in all those years was being a guest, like on a show like this. And at the end, they would like play like Boom by Royce da 5'9", and they would play like one of those catchy beats, and they'd be like, yo, we're gonna open up the mic, and I'd be like, yo, I gotta go. And I would leave.
I'm out.
Or when they would invite me up to the show, I would bring my drum machine, and I would have Hug or Sheed with me and let them rhyme. And people would be like, yo, you never rhyme. I was like, because I never consider myself a rapper. I was a musician and producer, and I knew how to write, but I didn't want to be an MC. But all through my career, it was about, they were so unreliable. I'm like, yo, I got all these beats. Either they didn't show up, or I had a beat that I really liked and they couldn't vibe to it. They would be like, I can't. I would basically rhyme over stuff that nobody picked on beat CDs.
Yep.
Like those entire albums, like especially the later ones, those are beats that nobody picked. Because, so I would wind up taking my leftovers essentially.
Yeah.
That whole album is beats nobody picked.
So, that's what should be the title. A job ain't nothing but work.
Right. And that was actually the only album in my entire rap career. That was the only album where I actually made an effort to really try to focus on emceeing. Like, I was doing a lot of shows. I did my one and only legitimate tour during that time. And that was the only album campaign where I was like, okay, you know what? I'm just going to do this myself because I'm tired of depending on people. I'm tired of chasing people with beat CDs. I'm just going to do it myself because I have a ridiculous work ethic. So I'm like, I'm just going to accept it. I don't want to be a rapper, but I'm going to accept it. That was the only album because the first three, I was trying to get Hug and Sheed into the front and play and just kind of be the comic relief. Yep. That was the thing. By the time you get to Sick of Being Rich, right? That was basically a compilation album. Like,
you got self-titled, copyright, King T, J-Ro.
Master Ace is on there. Al Sheed is on it. So it was just like, that was my album where I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to make this all. That was supposed to be my last album. I was like, I'm just going to focus on production. And I'm going to just get other people who are not in underground rap, like King T and on Master Ace, different people on my beat so people can hear my music with other kind of styles besides my own. Because people always associated my music with certain artists. And I was like, well, if I put a legend from Cali like King T on it, they'll hear that I can do it for anybody. So that was my goal. It didn't work out. Like, it came out, but then it didn't, I didn't become the next Alchemist or Madlib or whatever that I was trying to be. Yeah. And I was like, all right, I'm back at square one. So then I said, well, let me do this myself. So then I did A Job Ain't Nothing But Work. And that's when I actually started trying to do a decent stage show. People would ask me to rhyme on the radio and I would do it. I embraced it all for the first time. And then the last time, because after that album, I went right back to staying in the background.
Mortal, do you remember, I saw you in Providence. I don't remember the name of the venue. Mortal, were you at that show? Do you remember seeing J-Zone in Providence?
Well, I brought him to Providence. So
that's probably
the first time
you might have seen it.
Yeah, I mean, well, the problem is like at my own shows, I don't get to watch anything at my own shows. I'm busy putting out fires the whole night. So,
but this is 2004. This kind of aligns with what I'm gonna say to you right now. This is a dumb story, but I'm gonna tell you anyway. And I think it's important. Like, I'm on this thing. Like, I just want to tell people, I want to give people their flowers while I can. Right. So I just want you to know, like you say, like you didn't become the next Alchemist, and I don't really think you're talking about money. I think you're talking about just
I'm talking about just being prolific.
I understand,
and I did do music for a lot of people, but it was like I was more known.
You did Cage. You produced a bunch of stuff on them.
Del,
Sadat
X, E40, Lonely Island. casual, high road. Yeah. So I mean, I wound up doing that, but yeah, exactly.
Yep.
But you know, but it was like I was more known for my own projects, and it was like I created a lane, but then I was like, yo, I don't want to rap. And I was like, but it was my fault because I kept making, but I felt I had to keep making records because I couldn't rely on selling beats because it wasn't moving the way I had hoped. So then I kept making records just to keep the lights on and to keep stuff out there. But then it's like, well, yeah, you put out this record. When you get on a show, people are going to expect you to rap. And I'm like, well, I don't want to rap. And then it was like, you know, it was like, but I kept digging this ditch. And that's what happens when you don't follow what your gut is telling you to do, and you're doing, because like you gotta understand something. Like at this time, like I had left my day job. So when music becomes your living and you're paying your rent, the music you're making no longer belongs to you. It belongs to the audience.
To me.
Right. And the audience determines what you do. So I was very hard-headed. Like this is a perfect example. Like my DJ then was DJ Contact, Ethan. And he used to tell me, Jay, you got to perform the songs that people like by you at shows. And this is like around that time, like 04, 05. I was like, I did that in 2000. I don't want to do that shit.
Right.
And he's like, you got to do it. And I'm like, no, I only want to do the new shit. Yep. And I was like, I want to do disco ho. I want to do basketball. I want to. And this is like, I don't want to like piss anybody off because I know like this is can I keep it real or can I?
No, absolutely.
100% real, please.
You sure?
Absolutely. We're grown.
Sure?
Yes.
All right. We're keeping it real. Don't get mad at me. I despised the song No Consequences. Like I hated that fucking record. So, but it was one of my most popular records. So what happened was towards the end, I had to perform it. And I used to be like, no, I'm only performing new shit. But now I understand that. Now I understand like
you got 24 hours, no cops.
Yeah, I hated that record. But I'm saying like now I understand why you can't do that. Right? Because people are coming, they're paying money for a ticket to see you. They want to see you do whatever it is you're known for.
Absolutely. As a crowd
business,
of people.
If it's a hobby, who cares? If you're paying your bills with music,
right?
It doesn't matter what song you like. It matters what people are coming to see. And towards the end, like around that time, 04, 05, like I was in a whole different place, and they wanted me to perform. They wanted me to perform songs I didn't even rap on. Like the first few albums were more popular than the later ones. So it became performing old stuff, and like I just stopped doing shows. I actually quit. My very last rap show was 2007. That's when I stopped, and I quit in the middle of No Consequences. I just turned the song off. I went to the DJ.
Right in the middle of the song?
The DJ was actually Bilal Bashir, who was Divine Styler's DJ back in the day.
Okay.
Ice-T's producer.
Yes, sir.
This was in LA. Danger Mouse was backstage. He came to the show. So the cast from Mad TV was there. There was 5 people. There was 5 people in the crowd.
Harry Spears.
There was 5 people in the crowd. It was capacity like 2,000. And the only person, and one of the 5 people was Open Mike Eagle. How crazy is that? So you have all these future famous and celebrity A-listers here, but the crowd is empty. And Bilal Bashir is behind me on the turntable. I was performing No Consequences. I was like, I'm done. I got to like the middle of the verse, and I was like, yeah. And I went to Bilal, and I said, I went over to the set list. I crossed out the next 5 songs. I said, I'm doing these last 4 songs, and I'm getting the fuck out of here. And I'm never doing it again. And I never did a rap show again. That was 2007. But I'm saying like that. What I was going to say is like, because of this theme of rappers not being reliable, and me just saying, oh, I'll write a funny little, a silly little rhyme. I don't, let's just do that and make it entertaining. Fun with it. I just wanted to make an entertaining record. But then now you create this persona and people expect that from you.
You got to be that,
And when you're on stage, you have to be in I was a character, Jay's own character. So fur coat.
I mean, you're wearing mink coats at the beach, dude.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Like,
you know, so
that's got to be hot in the club,
right?
You know.
So I used to wear that coat. And
listen, let me get my story off real quick.
And
so,
okay.
hold on. In 2004, I saw you at Providence, right?
Okay.
And my friends had opened up, and I knew a couple of people that opened up. You know, the locals were opening up that night, and the microphones were terrible. Everybody sounded like shit, right? The beats, the system was whack, all this. And I remember coming up to you, and I think you had that. No, you didn't have the coat on yet. You put that on just before the stage. I said, "Hey, Jay, hey, make sure you do a mic check before you go on, because the sound man is sabotaging tonight." And you were like, "Okay, you know, whatever, dude. You weren't rude. You were like, oh, okay," and it kept going. And when you came out on stage in that coat, you cut right through. It's like they hit a magic button upstairs, or just your level. Like, you say you didn't want to be there, but like your level of professionalism, you're saying you were taking it real serious there. It translated. It was a fantastic show.
Well, it was a job. That's what I said before. I was paying my rent. And like, regardless of what I felt about the music I was doing or the character I was in, I had a job to do. People paid to see me. So whatever emotions I was feeling about not wanting to do it, I don't drink at all anymore. But back then, I would have a couple of screwdrivers to get rid of the nerves, or like a vodka cranberry. I would have a couple of drinks, and then I would just block it out, and then I would just go to work. And it was like going to work. It was like, people don't understand, like, when music becomes your living, it becomes your job. People say, "Oh, I hate my job. I hate my job." You don't think it makes sense to hear an artist say, "I hate my job," because you're doing what you love, music. Right? But if every artist did what they love, they would alienate their fan base, which I eventually did, because after a while I just didn't care. But it was like, what it is when the curtain goes up, you got to do what they're paying you to see. And that was you know just as well as I do, if you go see Guns N' Roses, they got to play Sweet Child of Mine. You know what I mean? Like, you have to. And I was nowhere near any kind of big level, but I did have my songs that the diehards really liked. And it didn't matter what I felt. I had to do it. And now I understand that. But back then,
you're like,
I was just like, I was up there like, man, I had to be somewhat intoxicated to get through a show, because my mind was just
to numb it up. Yeah. I can appreciate it.
So, but around that time, my focus was to be a complete artist, because I was tired of depending on people. And, you know, by that time, like, when I first came in, if you sold the beat, you could make a little money. Like around 04, 05, CD sales came to a slow. People weren't making as much money. Advances were less. So nobody could really pay a lot of money for beats. So like, even as a freelance producer, the money wasn't what it was even 2-3 years prior. So at that point, I just decided to become a self-contained artist. And then, No, definitely that as we get into iTunes and whatnot,
again, the production cost goes down. And then, you know, we also got to a place where nobody wanted to pay for a sample, you know?
Yeah, and it just got prohibitively expensive, you know, to make records. So it was just like freelance production. Just by the time you get to like 07, 08, there's no work.
Yeah.
So like that was the beginning of me. Well, I took 5 years off from the music business. And in that time, that's when that came about. And that's when I learned to play drums all during that period. Yeah.
Speak to that first drum set. You said you played the bass, but what got you on the drums? You know, what made you want to switch over to the drums?
The book and the drums are connected.
Okay.
So the book, well, basically, like I said, if we're going chronologically, by the time we get to 2008, I'm doing like alter ego records like Chief Chinchilla, instrumental records like To Love a Hooker, and you know, Live at the Liquor Store, and
Give Me That Beat, Fool.
Yeah, right? I'm doing records. I'm doing. So at that point, like my audience had like dwindled. Yeah, exactly. But it wasn't what it was. You know what I'm saying? Like by the time, and then everything was changing. All the chain stores closed.
They did. I remember Tower closing up here.
Tower closed, and then we were starting to get into iTunes, like downloads, and like the music business was changing, the sound was changing, the scenes were changing.
Definitely.
What you could monetize was changing. I had already stopped performing live. I was only producing. And then around 08, I was like 30, 31, 32. And I'm just like,
right,
where is my life going? And I said, I'm going to go try to get a square 9 to 5 before it's too late, because all my experience is in being this character, this thing that I created. And I had no passion at all. So I was like, let me try to get a job. So in those years from 08, 09, 20, I had so many side jobs, and I was just like working like 80 hours a week. And I was totally away from music. I didn't want to be bothered. I didn't want to hear it. Every once in a while, someone would be like, yo, Jay-Zone, Lucy Lou, Captain Backslap, oh, maybe. And I'd be like, like that was just where I was at the time. And I just didn't want to be bothered. And
I understood that.
And what happened was around late 2009, early 2010, I was hanging out with a friend of mine. And, you know, me and her were hanging out, and we went back. She was staying with a friend in Brooklyn, and we went back there. And, you know, we're just in the living room talking and stuff. And then her roommate comes in and happened to know who I was. So then he just starts playing Pimps Don't Pay Taxes, like on his laptop. Or his iPod, I'm sorry. And he just starts playing it. And I just cringed. And my friend was like, why are you cringing? Like, he likes your music. You should be happy. Like, this is really cool. And I was like, I appreciate
you were moving on.
Please turn it off.
Yeah.
And then on the car ride home, I was kind of saying to myself, like, why did it give me that type of reaction? I should be proud of it. I should be happy. I should be like, wow, you appreciate it.
You should be, man. Yeah.
You should be, right. But at the time, I was just like, I didn't want to be reminded of it. I just didn't want to hear about it at all.
I can feel that.
And I was like, but I didn't understand why. I knew that I had burnt out and I lost interest and I went and wanted to get, but I didn't know why I had this deep bitterness. And what I started doing was just writing down. I started going back and thinking about all the stories, like things that good and bad. I started just kind of chronicling all of my little anecdotes from the music business and little stories. And when I started compiling these little short stories, I was like, it was good and bad. It was unfiltered. Like, it didn't have the audience. I was doing it for my own therapy, like trying to figure out why. I was like going back over it. And then I was like, I realized that there were things that happened that pissed me off, but I was so busy trying to get to the next level that I never enjoyed the level I was at.
Right.
And then I was on autopilot. So things that upset me, I didn't know that they upset me as much as they did.
Yeah.
Right.
You weren't taking the time to break it all down.
I wasn't processing it because I was in grind mode. So like if I had a meeting with an A&R and the A&R stood me up, or if I did a show and this happened or that happened, or, I felt like I was being pigeonholed and I created the shtick, and I was mad at myself for like allowing the character and the slapstick of the Jay-Zone to take center stage over the music itself. Those, I didn't realize it, but I was so busy trying to be as hardcore Zone as I could. I was like, I didn't realize that being known as a class clown above a musician, producer, serious about craft, the craft of beat making, writing songs, putting out records, whatever it is, the comedy and the novelty part, I didn't realize how much that bothered me. I just compartmentalized it. I put it away.
Hold on 1 second.
Yeah.
So just what I want you to realize, that I know you created this character, and it seems like, pie in the face, making jokes and all this stuff. At least to me, nobody can be like that. I knew you were an intelligent person. I didn't think you were some clown. I don't think you're a clown. You know what I mean?
Right. And most people I knew did, but then you would read like record reviews, or you would even meet fans like, yeah, dude. And I'm like, really?
And like
you
they
really
didn't get
that shit? Yeah, like they would take it. Some of that stuff was my real life. Like, I was always frugal and cheap. So, I mean, like, some of those things were really me, but like some of those things were just hyperbole. And to me, I'm like, nobody's gonna take this seriously. I'm here in the studio, this rapper didn't show up. I wrote this stupid 24-bar. It's just a joke. I'm just having fun. People took it serious. So I had a lot of degenerates that would come up to me at shows, and I'm like, what the hell is he
How am I
about?
attracting these people?
Right. And that bothered me. Like, and I was like, why am I attracting? Like, I had a lot of people like you who got it. Like, they understood it. They got the humor.
I can't be the only one. There's other people.
It was a lot of people. Yeah. But I also attracted a lot of nut jobs. And it was like,
you're gonna have it.
Yeah, freaking zone, yeah, man.
Well, also, the story is similar to Cool Keith skits. Like, yo, Keith, we want you to be ill. We want you to rhyme over jazz. You know what I mean? And So like, Keith wasn't gonna get locked into nothing. You know what I mean?
But you don't want to be. There's an artist. The last thing you want is to be pigeonholed. And I just did a project with Lord Finesse, and throughout the promotion of it, that's what he was always saying. Was that he didn't want to be pigeonholed because he's got a serious musical mind, and it's beyond punchlines and punchlines and beats and finesse, boom, rap, keep it real. But he's like a really musical person. Like, he's got more. layers. So we're all music nerds, so we have multiple layers. So, but it wasn't just that. It was a lot of things, and I started writing these short stories, and then before I knew it. After a while, I was working in a high school. Like this, Wyandanch Memorial High School on Long Island. My boss, my supervisor in the office I worked in was Rakim's 7th grade math teacher, Mr. Berger.
Let's do the math, yo.
Because Rakim is from Wyandanch, and so is Groove Be Chill. Wyandanch, Long Island. So I was working in a high school, and I knew a lot of the kids, and I used to hear chatter in the hallways, like, "Yo, man, I'm gonna make me I'm gonna be a rapper. I'm gonna be famous. I'm gonna make me a song and get famous. I'm gonna have a Bentley, and I'm gonna have." And I was like, they have no idea that if you're even able to pay your phone bill off rap, you're lucky. And then even if you're able to survive on it, there's tiers. You could be like a small independent artist, make it like 1% of the people become superstars. And when you do, it doesn't last.
Same with actors. Yes,
it's hard to sustain. And I'm like, these kids have no idea about that side of music business. And around that time, I was reading a lot of autobiographies from hip hop artists. And all of them kind of had the same trajectory. I had a really rough childhood. I came up in poverty. I got on, I struggled, I had my ups and downs, but now I live in Calabasas and I'm a millionaire and I'm making movies, the end. And I'm like, but I was on Greyhound buses, I was getting sued over samples. I was like, and then at the end, I lost my passion and it all petered out. And I was like, I've never read a book where it was just like, raw. Like, just the book was just like, this is what it was, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Like, all the music books, the struggles at the beginning and at the end is like a pot of gold, but nobody ever ended up strung out or broke or quit music. And music books are by famous people. And I'm like, most music people are not famous. So the average person who wants to be in music,
that's a fact.
Hearing my story, they're going to relate to it more than hearing, like, DMX's story is 1 in a million. LL Cool J's story is 1 in a million. Ice-T's story is 1 in a million. My story is 1 in 5, right? So it's
I got you.
So it's like, a light bulb went off when I would hear the kids in the hallway. I was like, yo, if I put this out, it might be a different angle to the music autobiography, like just warts and all. And I was like, and as I was writing this stuff, I stopped feeling bitter about it because I was putting it on the paper. And I was like, you know what? I'm in a totally different place. I wouldn't go back there if you paid me, but I can accept it. And when people say it impacted them, I appreciate it. I can look at it and say, wow, those records meant something to somebody. I'm not there anymore, but I appreciate it. And I'm proud of it. And it's part of, I needed that to move on. Like, I would never be able to go into the next phase unless I closed the chapter, right?
Process all that stuff. Yeah,
you can't, it's like, okay, we're going to knock this, we have a building here. If it has asbestos and it has lead and it's falling apart, like, you have to knock the building to the core. You can't build a building on top of a broken building. Like you have to gut it and you have to. So I'm not going to be able to reinvent myself until I close a chapter.
Yep, and you're getting it all out.
So I got it all out, and I closed the chapter. And that was like, I'm going to close the chapter. I mean, I made 2 rap records after that, but those were more like transitional.
Yep.
You know, like Peter. Yeah, exactly. So
again, you know what I mean? It's like I can't not. This I feel like this was like, hey man, you know, I'll make another one. But real quick, just talk about the Peter Pan syndrome and exactly what that phrase means. I know what it is, but just say.
Well, Peter Pan syndrome means a refusal to grow up.
Right.
And so what I was going to say about like Peter Pan syndrome, the book and the drums, they're all connected. Because
let's go.
The book came out October 3rd, 2011. And like maybe a month prior to that, my dad would come visit me in New York all the time because I was taking care of my grandmother. She was really sick. And my dad would come help out, and he had already retired. And I had been looking around. I was listening to I was watching a lot of old James Brown shows, and I was watching Clyde Stubblefield, and I was just like, man, he's so funky. Like, I want to do that. And I was watching, I was listening like a lot of Billy Cobham, Max Roach, Elvin Jones, Buddy Rich. My trainer at the gym at the time was a big Buddy Rich fan. He used to play drums. So he would always talk about it. He was like, well, buy a pair of sticks and I'll show you how to hold the stick. So I went to Guitar Center, bought some sticks, and he was showing me like mat grip, traditional grip, different things. And he's like, this is a single stroke. This is a double, a paradiddle. He was showing me rudiments. I was like, oh, this is cool, but I had no drums. So I would just take the sticks and just play on a pillow. And my dad came up and he saw me with the sticks playing on the pillow. And he was just like, oh, you know, he was like, it's about time you do, because my dad saw me being bitter for like 5 years. And he was like, you need to find an outlet, man. Like you can't just be, he said, I don't know if it's going to be hip hop or playing bass again, like when you was a kid, but you should be doing some kind of creative outlet instead of being bitter. And he saw me with the sticks. He's like, oh, you thinking about drums? I was like, I'm thinking about it, man. I'm curious. I'm watching a lot of videos, and Ray from the gym told me this. He was like, yeah, man. He said, that's good. We had a drum set when I was a little kid in the basement here, but I didn't know how to play. So
understood.
So one day, so the book came out on October 3rd, and then on Wednesday, October 5th was a Wednesday, and I was teaching music classes at my college, SUNY Purchase. They brought me back as an adjunct. So I was teaching production classes, but I was just teaching the kids what I knew. Like I was still checked out of music. Right. And I was just teaching because I had experience, and little by little, these college kids were making me excited about music because they hadn't been jaded yet. They reminded me when I was in college.
They were excited,
because when I was working on music for Tu Madre 13 years prior, that was how I was, like before the music business and all this shit. So I was kind of getting excited about music, and I was playing with my drumsticks. I come home, and my father actually went out and bought me a cheap drum set and put it in the basement. Like I was 34 years old, but I felt like I was 7. I'm a grown ass man, and my dad is buying me a drum set. Like, what kind of shit is that? But he was like, "Yo, I want to see you making music," and I was like,
"Look at that gift!
You bought me a set at 34."
I'm
a grown ass man. I should be buying you something.
Understood.
Like, you know, and I was like, he bought me this set, and my grandmother was hard of hearing; she couldn't hear shit. So I just went down there and started beating on it. And this was the end of 2011. So we're talking about October, November, December, January, February. So for 6 months, I would just put on my favorite Kool and the Gang James Brown record and just play along, not really
just
knowing
like the
what
bass.
I was doing. Yeah, exactly. About 6 months, I get to about April 2012, and one day I woke up and I remember, actually it was Valentine's Day. I was odd jobbing at the time, and I went and took like an odd job. I was going to do an odd job delivering like flowers and cakes and shit for a Valentine's Day rush for like a restaurant because I needed quick cash, and I was a caregiver, and I needed jobs that weren't 9 to 5. I needed jobs that were quick money.
You could just run and get it,
And I looked at how much money I would make at the end of the day doing this catering, delivering thing, and when I did the math, I was like, this is like nothing. And then I called them up and told them I got in a fender bender and I couldn't do it. So I cut out of the job. And I just sat around on Valentine's Day 2012. I sat around the entire day like, yo, what am I going to do with my life? Like, yo, the book was a victory, but I'm not going back.
You send them this picture, be like, yo, I can't make it.
Right.
Yeah. Valentine's Day.
So I was like, I'm not going to go back to doing what I was doing before. I've been playing drums for 6 months. I'm an amateur. I'm teaching at Purchase, but it's part-time. I'm doing these bullshit odd jobs. Like, I'm 35 going on 36. What am I going to do with my life? Mm-hmm. And then I just said, you know what? Like, I was home taking care of my grandmother all day from like 11 to 5 or whatever. Like, while the nurse's aide was here, I had to be here because they needed somebody here to bounce things off of.
Understood.
So I was like, I'm here 6 hours a day. I can't go nowhere. And then I just said, well, I'm playing drums. I really like it. Well, what happened? When I was playing bass in the 5th grade, I would come home at school at 3, and from 3 to 9, I'd play bass. When I got the SP 1200 in the 10th grade, I would come home from school and make beats on the SP from 4 to 10. And I was like, what if I just played drums from 11 to 5?
Right.
Every day.
Yep.
And I did that for like 2 years. And then it was like, and then one day I called up RJD2 because he does a lot of live music. And I was like asking him about microphones and
great artist, yeah.
Vintage drums and stuff. And he was like, okay, check out this kind of drum, check out this kind of microphone. They have them on eBay. They're relatively cheap. Mm-hmm. And I started rebuilding my studio to record drums. And then when I started recording myself, I was like, yo, this doesn't sound like a clean modern thing. This sounds like an old record, like somebody would sample this shit. And
different mics. Yeah.
And the stigma with live music and hip hop is that it always sounded too clean. So people, when they see an MC or a DJ and they see a band, they go, oh shit. Because they know that
I agree.
It's going to be too clean. And I was that way, but I was like, nah, like I'm recording myself and it sounds like a record that I have because of the way I was, my knowledge of engineering and recording in the studio was far ahead of my drumming abilities, but I could play well enough to make a breakbeat. So I just started recording myself. And then before you knew it, I was like, well, what if I made a beat, but I did the drums instead of sampling the drums? So like when I quit making beats in like 2007, there was obviously you have discs and discs full of samples that you just never used. So I went back and pulled up every beat I made that never came out and just took away the program drums and played live all the way through. And before I knew it, I had like 15 of them. And I was just like,
we're getting around here.
And I was going through the thing with the delivery job, with the, take care of my grandmother, there's no money. I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing with my life. And I'm like, yo, I got and plus the book had all these stories that would make great songs, like Gadget Ho, that was from the book. So I was like, I have no interest in being a rap artist again, but it would be kind of cool to take this drumming journey I'm on, these musical ideas that I never used, put them together and then tell the stories of what I'm going through and from the book. And I made Peter Pan Syndrome in like 5 months. Like I made it like that. And I had no plans.
From conception to.
It was like from like February to like July of 2013, I just made that album. And I put it out and everybody was like, yo, it's his comeback, he returned. But to me, it wasn't really a comeback. It was kind of like, look, I'm focusing on trying to be a drummer, but I'm not good enough yet to play in a band. So I'm using it as a vehicle.
Using this, yes.
The familiarity of being a rap artist.
Yep.
I use that as the vehicle for my drumming. Right. So it was like I did that, and
I can get that. When you went to go write the vocals, when you went to go write the rapping part of all this, did you have flashbacks, or did it give you problems, or did the pen work for you? Like as far as like
the pen worked because because this time around I wasn't thinking about monetizing the rap career. Yep. So there was no pressure. And if you listen to that album, every song is one verse because except for like 3 or 4 of them, it's all one verse because I didn't care.
You got the idea out. Yep.
I was on some Step in the Arena shit, like street ministry. There's like 20 of them, like 1 minute long. Boom, one verse. You know, like I used to like that about that album, that every song was like a minute.
Definitely.
Like, so
and that was the idea.
That was the idea.
No need for a second
there was no
verse.
need because I'm not an MC. I'm just like telling a story. And people know me for this, so I could use it as a vehicle. And what exactly happened was people started noticing the drums. So it was like, I started getting people hitting me up like, yo, that's really you? I was like, yeah. They were like, yo, how much to play on a session? And I was like, what? And then I started going. So I'm calling up RJ.
300
like,
bucks.
How much do I charge? And then before I knew it, John from Redefinition Records, which Damu the Fudge Monk and Jay Noda own Redef Records. John was like, yo, why don't you put out a breakbeat record? I was like, what? Did you say it with all your drums? And then Al Coda from the Drum Broker, I know a guy named Bullyfinger, who's a fan of mine. He was like, yo, I'm hooked up with this guy, the Drum Broker. He does kits with producers with drums. Why don't you sell your drum breaks? Like put it together and buy him. So I was like, all of a sudden I started getting called and I was like, that's exactly what I wanted to happen. I used the familiarity of the J-Zone brand as a rap artist to vehicle for drums because I wasn't ready to play. I wasn't ready to drive a band or play a show yet, but I had the studio shit down. So I put out a break record and then it became a big revenue stream for me.
It's fantastic. So, of course you use that name. Like you don't just bury that. Like yeah, you push that.
Well, this is you know, it's interesting that you say that because I had a really big, I don't know what to call it, but like not an epiphany, but I had this thing where I was starting to gain traction with drums. And I was posting like videos of my drumming and my projects on my page. And then I was getting a lot of comments like, yo, when you gonna rhyme again? Or yo, this is cool, but when you gonna rhyme again? And then it was kind of like, it was almost like I built the J-Zone brand based on this. And now I'm doing this. Like, it's almost like it's gonna throw people off. So I was talking to one of my best friends. He was like, why don't you just go by your government name? Because if it's J-Zone, they're gonna expect you to be rapping and you know, like just build. But then, no, I'm gonna get to it. But it's like, I was like, he was like, because then you can rebrand from zero and you don't have to worry about that. But then I remember I talked to Just Blaze about it. He was like, just use your name because you're an artist.
It's not going to change.
And it's all part of it. And it's like, just because you don't do that stuff anymore, you're still the same person. Like people are going to grow with you or they're not. And if they don't, that's okay. And if they do, that's okay. And people who never heard of the rap shit know me as a drummer, then they go back and say, oh, that's cool. You did that. And it's all part of the same journey. Because I was thinking like, okay, after Sub Rock passed, MF Doom stopped using Zev Love X and he reinvented his MF Doom. So that that part of me was like, why am I going to continue to use a brand that was built off of these things that people love, but then I'm doing something entirely different? And it's like, and people, and it's always the comment section, right? Like, yo, man, Captain Backslap, but you got so, but so what I decided to do was continue to use the name, but then also use both. I use them interchangeably. I use my government and I use J-Zone because they're both. I want people to know. I want other artists to know that you can still evolve, and you might not do what you did before, but you're still the same person at the core. As long as the integrity is there. Yeah. As long as the integrity is the same as it was in 1998, 2004, 2006, 2013, 2020, I'm the same musical spirit. It's just I have a different passion. So I feel like to follow my passion, you know.
I feel like for better or for worse, you know, in this instance, I feel like IG helps because
it's huge. It's Instagram. You know, without Instagram, I'll just say this: without Instagram, I don't think it would have been. It would have been so much harder for me to
seriously. If you use your government name on a sample pack or something like that,
nobody would know what it is.
I would just go buy it, like, because I wouldn't have put that together, but like that's kind of why you know.
It's and also that's business, right? Because my name, but regardless of whether people knew me for what I'm doing now or not, the name is still going to be like, okay, people who do like there's people who other producers I get all the time. People are like, yo, I grew up listening to your beats when I was trying to get on, and now that I'm making beats, I'm sampling your drums. Like that's dope because it's like now they're sampling me, and then they grew up listening to me doing hip hop beats. So it's a full circle.
I may have sampled you. I may have sampled you a little bit.
I've been sued before. So the reason I do those things is because
don't sue me. Yeah.
No, but the reason is I have no interest in being a hip hop artist, but that's where I come from. And I know what it's like to put out a record and you make $50 on it and someone still tries to sue you. So it's like, I want to give back to the next generation who wants a sampled sound. People who put this shit out on Bandcamp and sell 300 copies, just buy it and give me credit. I'm not going to come.
I got you.
You know what I mean? So, but I didn't have shit like that when I was making beats. I would have to sample records that are owned by Polygram Universal, and then they don't care that you only sold 2,000 copies. They come down on you like a hammer.
Right.
And it was like, I do this, obviously if someone produces for Katy Perry and uses my drums, I want to be paid, get some publishing.
Yeah, you definitely want that check. Yeah.
Right. But for the blue collar producer, I want credit. I'm trying to build my resume as a drummer. So people always make these beats and they tag me on Instagram and I'm like, yo, that's dope because I was once that. And now even though I don't have the passion to do that myself, I can live on in hip hop through my drums on other people's stuff.
And you know just as much as anybody, you put some open drums out there.
Oh yeah.
They get rocked.
They get rocked. And but that drum break record goes to show you there's a DJ named Louie Lou who was actually King Son's DJ. Okay. Back in the day. Heat him up, Louie. No, it's a heat up. Heat him up, Louie. Heat him up. Louie, a good friend of mine. Louie was DJing at Mobile Mondays, a DJ event in New York City. And he was cutting up doubles of one of my drum records, and Lord Finesse runs to the DJ booth. He's like, and the label was like a mock-up of an old Brunswick Records label. So he's like, yo, there's no breaks on no Brunswick shit. So he's like, yo, what was that Brunswick shit he was playing? He's like, oh no, that's J-Zone Backyard Breaks. He was like, J-Zone, the rap J-Zone? He was like, yeah. And he was and then all of a sudden, my phone is ringing. What's that record with the Brunswick, with you playing drums on it? He was like, can you send that to me? So I sent it to him, and he's like, yo, I'm working on some projects. I need you to do some custom work. So then, boom. You know what I'm saying? Like, Lord Finesse, Motown State of Mind came out a month ago. That was huge. I bought Funky Technician and learned it word for word in the 8th grade. You know what I mean? So it's like, now he's in my basement, like, yo, give me a fill. Give me a roll.
I feel it, man.
Give me this, and then, Danger Mouse, Alchemist, Marco Polo, Pharaoh Monch. I've done a lot of work for, I've done drums for these cats, and it's like, it's a way for me to stay involved in hip hop, doing what I love to do now.
On your terms, yeah.
On my terms.
On your current,
I don't have to put on a fur coat or grab a mic or make a beat. I can deliver, I can still be part of it, doing what I love to do. And then when I want to go play funk with Du-Rites or play rock with Lulu Lewis or play soul behind touring with Ben Pirani, I can go off and do that. Yep. So it gave, the drums gave me something where I could work with everybody in every genre, and I can continue to work with people of all kinds of music and all walks of life. And that kind of brought the journey back full circle. And it was just, it took the discipline to focus on drumming. I had to, like, cutting out beat making as a revenue source, cutting out emceeing in terms of doing shows and monetizing J-Zone records, even DJing. Yeah. Like, I was making money. I had a DJ residency, and then they let me go because they had some budget constraints. And I was like, I lost all of these revenue streams, and I was like depressed about money. Like, here we go again. But now I have 8 hours a day to go to the next level.
Yeah.
Now I
got your freedom.
I haven't made a break record in 4 years. Now you got the time because you're not DJing every Thursday and bringing records to the club, and you're not like, okay, I need a beat for this, and you're trying to make a beat, but your heart's not in it, or yo, do a verse for this. It's like, okay, now I have the time. And as I was always like a jack of a million trades, and as I got older, I realized, like, you can't master anything by doing too much. So it's like everybody who's ever mastered something usually has one or two disciplines. People who do 5 or 6 things, they're like super talented, but they never master. And, you know, the only thing I gave that effort in my life was the bass, the writing, and production. Those were the things in the past where I would do that 8 hours a day shit. And I had my most success back then as a hip hop producer. The book did great for me, and bass was the first thing I mastered. So taking that approach with drums and letting go of everything, it was like I lost money, I lost fans, but it opened up the ability to go to the next level. And then once I got to the next level, then I was able to come back and contribute to hip hop as a drummer. You know what I'm saying? Like, so, so it's like I'm still around, I'm just a session player. You know, so it's like it's just in different forms, you know. Which
is beautiful because, you know, most of the time session players you get a little up front, and then you get that revenue coming in later, you know.
If you get the publishing, so I learned about composing. Like I said, I always had perfect pitch. I went and studied my music theory because in order to pay bills, we need this song for this deodorant commercial. You know, you got to go downstairs and write that to pay your bills so that you can spend your money putting out Du-Rites records. You know what I mean? Because that's the way it is. Like, music is a skill. Like, you know, you can hire a painter to paint the house. He may not paint. He may not paint it the way he would paint it. He's taking instructions from you, right? So he's got to pay his bills based on how you want him to paint. He might think orange is a terrible color. Well, I'm paying you to paint it orange. That's how it is being a musician. It's like, I want you know, Lord Finesse, I don't like that snare drum. Finesse, no, use that snare drum. And then, so when you're a rap artist, a solo artist, you're used to calling the shots. I'm going to use that beat. I'm going to do the show this way. This is the set list. When you're part of a band or you're a session player, your ego has to go away, and you have to be able to take instruction. So I had to humble myself.
For the unit to keep moving.
You got to be a team player, and that's something I never dealt with before. It was like, this is my beat CD. If you like beat number 12, give me X amount of money. Beat number 12 is yours. Once they pay me for the beat, then, but that I would control what I give them. When you're a session player or you're in a band, you got to humble yourself and take feedback. So it's different from being a solo artist. I had to I had to shrink my ego. And readjust my expectations. It's like DJing. Like, you have to a point you have to DJ for the crowd. Like, so it's like it's a different kind of job than being a beat maker or an MC.
You can play this all night, but you're gonna clear the room out.
I've done that. I've actually played that very record and cleared the room. I've played
Spoil Rotten is the shit.
My joint was You Gets Nothing. Neighborhood Jerry Curl, Neighborhood Haps. Yeah, man. I used to buy I love that record, man.
I don't want to sidetrack too much. Dude, this is the second CD I ever bought. My first CD, the first record I ever bought on CD was Brand Nubian One for All. And for some reason, this is the second one. Now look at the juxtapose between those two records.
Knowledge of Self and Jerry Curl. You know what I mean? Like the bitch that I hate.
Mortal,
I love that album. Oh, I love
Mortal, if you don't know, this is put out. Our Uncle Luke put this out on, Miami.
JT Money,
And what's crazy about this is it's Miami. It got that bass in it, but it's break beats in here. There's something about it that's still
too, Mr. Mix. Like cuts are crazy.
And it's some ignorant shit.
I love it. I love that record. That's
absolutely.
To me, that's like that's a top record for me, man.
I get it. So I feel like we got up to where I want to talk about Du-Rites, right?
Okay.
But real quick, did you ever?
Oh yeah, that's the greatest album of all time.
I'm aware.
I'm aware. Hip hop, that's the greatest album of all time.
Exactly. So as I'm telling you how much I appreciate you, I know you're an intelligent man. You can hear it through the music and all that. Like, I'm giving you your flowers while you're here. You know what I'm saying? I'm saying I appreciate you.
Thank you.
Did you ever get a chance to tell Tim Dog how much this record meant to you?
I told Mo Love. I told TR Love. All the time, I told Breakbeat Lou, who produced a couple of tracks on there.
Yep.
I tell those guys every time I see them. Yeah, he did get off the dick. Luis Flores, that's Breakbeat Lou.
Oh, correct. I must have not remembered that. But that's fantastic. I got the second joint too.
All right, so we're about to get into the Du-Rites stuff.
Okay.
I know I'm asking because I'm just here enjoying this. I'm enjoying this show, yo. I'm just in the cut.
Oh, absolutely.
I'm loving it. But I'm gonna run to the bathroom real quick. So please, don't get too far into it because I'm all right. I mean, I can. Yes, I will rewatch it for sure. But
I'll be right back. You, man. We got you. So I noticed looking at the credits back over here. That's great. Oh, so yeah, that's just kind of like just to be able to tell them and just acknowledge Master Ace and words where we were bringing this up. How Last Emperor said it. He's like, back in the 90s, we didn't tell each other, "Hey man, you're really good, man. I think you're really skilled." And
you didn't did that. No, you just didn't do that. Yeah.
You know, and I don't know if it's just. I mean, we're definitely living in a different time.
It was always an alpha sport. emceeing was always an alpha sport. But I was never like that. I because music means so much to me. I always like my favorite band of all time is Kool and the Gang, and I was fortunate to meet and interview and hang with George Brown, the drummer.
Yeah,
he's one of the most sampled drummers of all time. And of course, the genius Ronald Bell, who wrote and he was the musical director, the horn player, one of the most sampled horn player probably, besides Maceo. So I mean, like and meeting those guys, it was just like, thank you.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like, and all the drummers I interviewed on my drummer podcast, Give the Drummer Something, from Questlove to Bernard Purdy, all those guys.
Bernard, dude, yeah.
David Garibaldi, Mike Clark. I mean, I've interviewed all these guys, and you know, at the end, I mean, I tell them what their playing has done for me as a drummer, and also as a producer and DJ, as a music fan. So to me, I never was like that. I like your music. I'm gonna tell you.
Yeah,
you know, that's how I am, man. I never had that. Like I said, but Emp was an MC. Like it's a competitive drive, and it's there for DJs and producers. But MCs are like alpha, like battle. Like me, like I said, I wasn't an MC. I was a storyteller, and that's what I did. So I didn't care about MC stuff. I wasn't very rapperly. I would wake up at 6 a.m. I would show up on time. I didn't smoke weed. You know what I mean? Right. So like, I was like the most unrapper rapper. I was, despite the album cover, I always was on top of my taxes, my accounting, all that stuff. So I was always very.
You ain't no rapper. Yeah.
I was just like, to me, it was just a job. I'm going to my job to do rap today. And I go back and then I'm Jay Mumford, the businessman, the musician, you know, like that's just how it was to be. And,
I think it's important. Look at what's going on in the world and everything. And I'm just at that point. I'm 47 years old. I'm gonna tell people I love them. I'm gonna tell people I appreciate.
You're not promised tomorrow. We've been reminded of that.
I might not get a chance. So this is beautiful. You know, this show is beautiful to me. So back to my. All right. So we're gonna do Mortal. You didn't miss.
All right. Word.
Du-Rites jump off.
All right. Cool.
All right. So I'm aware of the Du-Rites because of Instagram, because of following your page. I saw you drumming in the room that I'm familiar, you know, the G4 and the Take a Look Around album. You know, I've seen shots of the room. So that's where I learned to do rights. But as I'm looking, it says right over here that Sick of Being Rich was mastered by Pablo Martin.
Exactly.
Is that your man's right there?
Full circle.
Yep.
Pablo has mastered every record, all the rap records.
Yep.
All of them except for Music for Tu Madre, and I'm gonna let you in on a little secret. Music for Tu Madre was never mastered.
Yeah.
the vinyl was. The vinyl was.
Yeah.
But anybody who had a CD or a digital, it was totally unmastered. Because I was in college, I didn't know anything about mastering. But from Bottle of Whoop Ass moving forward, Pablo was the engineer at Digital Force, and I've known Pablo for 20 years. And we never thought to start a group together. He was my mastering engineer. He would come to my DJ. We were cool. And we were always, you know, we would support each other. But I had no idea he played guitar, bass. I had no idea he was a musician. but mastering was his day job.
Yep.
And when I started playing drums, I went on Facebook and I put up a post, like after about a year of playing, and I was like,
okay,
I want to test my armor. I've been playing by myself for a year. I want to play with other musicians. Does anybody want to come to Queens and
see
jam
about the
with
timing?
me? Yeah, I wanted, because it's one thing to play with other people. They depend on you for the time. That's how you test your metal.
Yep.
And I was like, does anybody want to play? And obviously at the time, all my friends were hip hop people. So a lot of them didn't play instruments. So nobody responded. He was the only one who responded to that post.
Mm-hmm.
I remember the post had no likes, no responses. And Pablo said, I'll call you. Mm-hmm. And then he calls me. He was like, yeah, what are you doing Sunday? I'll bring my bass to your house and we'll jam.
Mm-hmm.
So I picked him up, the train came over here. At that point, my time wasn't very good. I was rushing a lot and stuff. But he was like, you've only been playing, how long have you been playing? I was like, I've been playing about a year and a half. He's like, yo, for a year and a half, you're fucking good. And I was like, really? He was like, he's like, you got some things to learn, but yo, to play like you're playing in a year is crazy. And he was like, so we would meet like once a month and we would jam. And then we started recording it. And he would take the recordings home and try to build songs around it with guitars and keyboards and just my drums. And then we would start sending each other back and forth and building the song. And I'm like, yo, I want to recut the drums for that. So he's like, yo, do it to a metronome so we can work. And so we created a couple of songs in 2013, The Chief and I and Hustle. Those were and The Man with the Golden Tooth. We created those 3 songs.
We were just talking about the Golden Tooth.
Yeah.
We made that in 2013.
Mm-hmm. A James Bond song.
Crazy.
Yeah.
You sound like a James Bond villain or something. Yeah.
The Golden Gun. Yeah. So we did that. And we had been working on this little, to me, this was like 2013, 14. Like I was in another hip hop group at the time that never came out. And I was doing Peter Pan. I was doing break records. So this was just a side project to me. It was fun, but it was a side project.
It was fun. Yep.
And then one day, like right around New Year's, 2013, going into 2014, it was like that last week in December, Pablo calls me up like, yo, my rock band, my drummer, Vale, can you make a rehearsal? And I was like, you mean like a whole band? Like with a bunch of people? He was like, yeah, we need a drummer. And I was like, I've never played with a whole band before. I mean, I did, like I sat in on some jazz thing and got embarrassed, but that was a teacher I had. He made me do that to see where I was at. But I've never played like with a band for like more than 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And I was like, he was like, just get your sticks and your pedal and come to Brooklyn.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, I'm not that good. He's like, don't worry about it. We need a drummer. It's like either you or we have no drummer. So any drummer's better than none. And I was like, all right. So I went. And it was Pablo, Bill Harvey, who's the bass player for the Du-Rites when we play live now.
Okay.
And a guy named Walter, who's a sick guitar player. And we just jammed for like 4 hours. Mm-hmm. And they were like, yo, man, fun playing with you. And I was like, a compliment? Like, it was one thing to do a great beat or a loop on a record, but to like actually play and other people are following my time, I was like...
Be in the moment, yeah.
And they were like, and then Pablo called me again 2 weeks later, like, yo, Brooklyn, 7 o'clock, be there. And I was like, what?
Right.
Before you knew it, we were playing every week. And in 2015, I just was cutting my teeth every week. We would play like, I think it was like every Thursday night we would play. And I just started getting used to playing with people, which was the next step. Get out of your basement, get on the stage, play with other musicians, leaning on you for the time. That's the only way you're going to get, with no metronome to help you, no training wheel. You gotta have an internal clock, a feel. Yes. You got to listen to that bass player or the rhythm guitar groove, lock in. Mm-hmm. And then if they look at you and smile, that's how they know you're in the pocket, you're in the groove. Right. Because when they see you, they're like, and then after a while they started smiling, and I was like, all right. And then I was doing funk, hip hop, break beats. They were doing more rock, so I had to learn how to play rock. I had to play more powerful, louder. Change I had to learn how to play match grip and all this. So I had to go. So I got all this experience, and we did that for like 2 years, and then we started doing shows. And then I started getting out on the stage. And this is a tidbit I have to mention. I was, like I said, I was part of a hip hop supergroup around that time. And we did one show, South by Southwest. I had to rhyme and play drum. That was the only time I rhymed on stage between 2007 and now, one time, early 2016. My grandmother had just passed. My life was in turmoil. We did this show. We weren't prepared. We weren't rehearsed. We did a 15-minute set. I rhymed with a ski mask on, right? So nobody knew it was me except Large Professor, who was backstage. We did the show.
Yep.
From the minute I got on the mic, I wanted to blow my fucking brains out. I just said, like, you know when you're like, yo, I made the right decision, and then you go back, and then you realize the minute you get in, no, I made the right decision. Why am I doing this?
Yes.
But when I was behind the drums, I mean, I was sloppy because I was still learning. But being behind the drums, I was like, yo, I can dig this. I just got to get better. So then I quit the group. We got back to New York, and I just said,
"You tell Large Professor, I'm good. Like I'm done. Give him the ski mask."
Well, Large said, "Yeah, you guys looked unrehearsed. You didn't look tight." He was keeping real. He was like, you need to focus on that Du-Rites because that's your thing." So
hey, he was right. Let's go.
We went back, and the Du-Rites. We wound up finishing the album. I started playing keys again and bass and learning my music theory. We started both writing. In the beginning, he wrote all the shit and I played drum. Then I started writing because I started studying my keys. And then we made that first album. After that disastrous South by Southwest show, I just said, I'm going to go back and focus fully on drums and my band. And then the band that Pablo had, his rock band.
Yeah.
So I focused solely on that in 2016. And then good things started happening. And then I went into a record store one day, and the guy working behind the counter is a soul singer named Ben Pirani, who's on Coal Mine Records now. And he's like, listen, we were always talking about old drums and vintage sounding drums. He was like, yo, I need a drummer, bad. And I was like, what? Right. He was like, yo, there's an audition Friday, 8:00. Can you do it? I'm like, it's Tuesday, man. He was like, I'll email you the entire set list, learn it, and be there and audition. So I had been in these, Pablo brought me into that band because he was my friend. So they were soft on me because that's your boy, and we're gonna groom him and take him out. This is an audition. So I'm nervous as shit. I go into the audition and I get the gig. And the day I did the audition, I interviewed Steve Ferrone, who was the drummer for Average White Band.
Yeah.
And he was also Tom Petty's drummer, studio drummer, Eric Clapton. He's one of the steadiest, he's Questlove's idol, basically. And when I interviewed Steve, the last thing I asked him, yo, I got my first audition tonight. What do you do? He said, don't be fancy, just play the song. He was like, don't try to show off, don't be flashy, just play the song. I went in there and did that. Yeah. I got the gig, and then Ben was like, you could play some fills if you want. You can do more than just play the song. I was like, all right.
Yeah.
Steve told me.
You want to make sure you got it locked. Yeah.
Right. So now we're at the end of 2016. Du-Rites puts out their first album. I'm in the rock band with Pablo and his wife, which is called Lulu Lewis. And then I'm Ben Pirani's drummer. So now I have 3 jobs. And I'm doing breakbeat records. And then I started getting the Lord Finesse. So then before I knew it, being nervous about, damn, I need money. Should I try to sell a beat, or should I try to do a Jay Zone show? Yeah. Like before I knew it, putting all that focus on my craft, the work started coming. And one day I still looked around and said, yo, I'm surviving on composing and playing drums. Like, this is crazy. You know what I mean? But it happened because it was a risk. I took the risk.
Doing one thing, right?
Doing one thing and trying to master it.
Not wearing 3 hats, 5 hats, so you're doing one thing, and it's
that was the biggest lesson I've learned in my entire time in music. The time you put into your craft will pay you back. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, and trying to do too many things, you can't
do any of them 100%.
Exactly. You're eventually gonna have to call in somebody who has put in the time to cover your ass.
Right. So let's talk about catalog here with Du-Rites. As far as like what I see on Spotify, we touched it earlier. I think there's at least 4 albums and then singles. There's 4?
There's 4 and number 5 is on the way. It's coming out in November.
Yeah. Hey, do you how's the like the 45s and stuff like that, and some of those like one-offs?
Those I love doing that.
That's smart.
Because that's like me being a kid finding a James Brown 45. I always wanted my music on 45, but you know, doing the hip hop records, it wasn't really the right format for that. Like my audience wouldn't buy, like no one would buy a Boss Hog Barbarians 45. You know what I'm saying? Like, they would buy a CD
and rap.
They would buy this. The kind of music that's on 45 is more like soul, break beats, things that people would play, that kind of aesthetic. And finally, I was making music that was suitable for 45. So once I got in that lane, I went crazy and started putting out 45s, and they started selling. And I was like, as long as I break even and make my money back and make enough money to put into the next one, then we keep going. And we have fun with the labels. We do the funny little labels and we put them out, and DJs will cut them up and get doubles. I reduce the price for people who buy doubles because we try to cater to the DJ. Right.
And you see every Friday like Spinner and Scratch and
Natasha Biggs, Spinner, Scratch, Kenny Dope and
Kenny Dope. Yeah. They do their 45 thing on Friday. Yeah.
Yeah, they're all, super deep with that. And, and I'm making the music so I could say, hey, I'm gonna play 4 bars of drums here so that they can cut something. And in 30 years, some kid might find it and sample it. So it's like me giving back to where I started. Like to me, it's all a full circle thing.
I can see all that. Yeah. So I didn't mean to cut the thing off. I'm sorry, I get excited. Pull it back to what you were saying with Pablo. And as you're getting to the point where you're in the 3 bands, are you guys, obviously not right now, but like, are you hitting the road before this, the shutdown and whatnot? You guys touring and all that? Was that going on?
Yeah.
I know the words changed.
We opened for the Scatolites in early January, which was major. Great show. Mm-hmm. We were, in the talks of doing a festival in France. We had all this stuff lined. We had gigs lined up, and then COVID.
I get it.
But
are you still working on sending stuff back and forth at this point?
We finished
over these past couple months.
We just finished our 5th album called Funky Bad Time, and we made it in the pandemic all through WeTransfer. And we put out a single last month called Jerry Curl. Poison Clan.
I heard it. Yeah.
You know where that
comes exactly. Right. Track 3.
Yeah. So so we have the album done. We're just dealing with the illustration for the artwork now, but it's mastered, it's done, and we're gonna send it to the plant as soon as the art is done. So the time we would have been rehearsing and doing shows, we've been writing new music. Mm-hmm. So the album's done. We're on our 5th album. So
I already feel like, and I know I've seen it, but I feel like I'm already missing out on some of them 45s. You know what I mean? Like as full admittedly, I'm catching a late pass. You know what I mean?
No,
with
better late than never, man.
Oh man, that's like Santi Gold. Like I discovered her quite a few years after she was about to put her 2nd album out, and I'm just finding her. The point of that is, it's like, oh my God, how didn't I know about this? This is incredible.
That's the beauty of it, man. You have all your life to discover it. We just, every day there's a new person. That's the beauty of it, man. So
I'll say, as the Du-Rites are playing like all day today, I've been playing it, and you still kind of peppered some of your sense of humor in there too.
Oh yeah,
I'm picking up on it like a little. I appreciate that so much.
Always.
You know what I mean? Like
Chief Chinchilla pops up once in a while. You know what I mean? Like so, it's
you got to say what's up.
Look, man, like that's always going to be part of what I am, but it's just getting on the mic and rocking a crowd is not. I have a sense of humor, so I'm going to use it. I just won't make it the focal point, but I'll put it in there. You know what I mean? Like I'll always do that because we don't have a singer. There's no vocalist, so every once in a while you want to put a little personality in the music.
yeah, there needs to be movement in there. So what else do you play on the records? You mentioned you were studying keys and whatnot.
I play most of the keyboards. I play the organ. I play the organ. Pablo plays synth, but I play the organ. The organ is all me. And the electric piano, the Rhodes, the Wurlitzer, the clavinet, I play all that. Most of the percussion stuff. I play bass sometimes. But Pablo's a monster bass player, so he only lets me like once every other album.
You gotta let him take it, right?
To my 10-year-old self, I gotta get down sometime. I played on maybe 5 of our songs, not that many, but I played most of the keys and the drums. Yeah.
So you typically do you just like jam for a little while and go back and see what was look for those bright spots?
We jam and find the bright spots and then build from there. Or he'll start something, send it to me. I'll do something, send it back.
Yeah.
We do it all kinds of ways.
What's the age difference? Are you guys? I'm sorry, I don't know.
He's 9 years older than me.
Okay, so do you feel like that? Does that do anything? Like, dude, he was involved Tom Club. When you search that dude, you know what I mean? Like, other stuff comes up for him. He's been in other things.
Yeah,
like
Tom Club guitarist. Yeah.
Woo! You know,
all the guys in the like when we play live. Bruce Martin, the keyboard and percussionist, when we play live, he's also in Tom Club. And Bill Harvey, like I said, the bass player. They're all older than me. I'm the baby. Yeah, you know, Genius of Love. Exactly.
Crazy.
So, right. So was Pablo on that song? Was he around then?
No. He's the modern. He plays now. Like he wasn't on it in the 80s, but he joined in 2011. But he plays it now. Like when they would play up to now, when they would play live, he's the guitarist. You know.
Yeah. And Tom Club is an extension of Talking Heads.
I'm an old soul though, so being around older people don't bother me because Vance Wright was my mentor, and you know I'm used to being around. I was raised by my grandparents a lot, so I'm used to being around people who are older. I'm used to being the youngest person in the room, but I like that because then I can absorb,
learn.
And then when I play with Ben Pirani, I'm the oldest, and I'm older than the youngest one by 15 years. So when I go out with Ben Pirani, I'm the OG. When I'm in Du-Rites and Lulu Lewis, I'm the young boy. So that gives me a full range. I get the youthful energy of the young millennial kids in Ben's band, and then I get the wisdom and experience of Pablo and Billy and Bruce when I do Du-Rite stuff. So I get both, and I don't get caught up in the generational, because you see a lot of guys my age, they hate the young kids and the young. You can't do that. You got to pass it on, man. You got to. You can't take it with you. Like anybody who wants to know something who's younger than me, I tell them what I know because, like how I'm gonna apply the information and how you're gonna apply the information is gonna give two different sounds because you can't be me and I can't be you. Got to pass things on and share things. And then when I'm around the drummers I interview, I hang around a lot of drummers who are old enough to be my pops. I carry the drum bags for Leslie Ming, who is BT Express, and Mtume, session drummer. Like he does gigs. I offer to carry his bags for free just so I can watch his feet when he plays. Up close, like from behind the set. I'm the roadie. You know what I'm saying? I carry his bags for nothing because that's
studying.
That's my man. And I watch him like a hawk. He's been playing for 50 years because that's valuable to me.
Sure.
You know what I mean? So it's like
absolutely.
You gotta absorb what you can, man, and then try to pass it on.
So does Pablo ever crack jokes about your old days, like the old records and whatnot?
Well, he was just saying like nowadays a lot of that stuff would get us canceled if we were to do it. But
there's probably some truth to that.
Yeah, there's some truth to that, but but. He knows all about the older stuff, obviously, because he mastered all the records. So he's familiar with me, and we have a working relationship. And I've known Pablo for 20 years, man. So it's there's a comfort level there, familiarity there, and a friendship, a brotherhood there. You know.
Does he understand like where you're coming from as far as like knowing a break beat and how much that break beat meant to you? Does he get it?
Yeah, he gets it. He gets it. Yeah, you get
so it. That's beautiful, man.
We're coming up on 2 hours. So I just want to call it out because
all right, is this archived somewhere? Can I share it?
Yeah. It'll be on Twitch for the next 60 days. I do pull it down and I don't give it a big chop, but I give it a small chop. Does that make sense? And then I put it on YouTube. I will send you all the links and everything.
Please do. Yeah, I'll share it.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not saying we got to go right now. I'm just saying, like, you know, we
actually, I'm getting. I got to go to the bathroom.
No,
me too. So listen, just to wrap it up, I appreciate your time. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me. Yeah,
I love the stories, and I look forward to buying a shitload of Du-Rites records soon. You know what I mean?
They're all on our Bandcamp, the Du-Rites.bandcamp.com. They're all there.
All right,
that's it.
And I just want to say that this show was so amazing. I just sat here and just watched. It was like you dropped so many gems.
For sure.
I can't wait to go back and rewatch this because like you spoke so much truth and wisdom that like I feel like I learned so much. But I know that when I rewatch it, I'm going to learn so much more because you know I didn't get it all in the first pass through. But one thing that you said that's crazy to me is how you were saying like. On your first albums, like you weren't supposed to rhyme on your first albums. You did it because no one else was there, you know? And that's kind of how we approach this show. Like I am not a host. I am not a person that's supposed to be doing an interview. And Scrick he'll say the same thing. But like we're putting on a show that we want to see, you know? We are trying to have these conversations with people who we want to hear what they have to say. Like these are important. Like you're an important person to us. Like every single person that's been on the show so far has been an important person to us. And
absolutely.
So we're creating the show that we want to watch. And because we're the only ones that are willing to do it, we're here to do it. So like a lot of what you said, it really hit me in a way that was truly profound. And I want to say thank you very much for that, Jewel, and all the rest. And hopefully, you know, this isn't a one-time thing. I feel like we're not.
I enjoy it.
Like we're not done. You have so much to give, and hopefully, you know, we can bring you back and try to be like creative or something. You know, have some fun. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, man. I definitely enjoyed it, and I appreciate you guys having me on the show, man.
Thanks again so much, man. It's nice to talk to you, man. I look forward. I'm gonna go listen to this though.
Yeah, man.
We'll pop it in.
Yeah. All right, man. Take care.
All right,
yes,
peace.
sir.
All right, we'll see you.
All right, peace.
I got a piss too.
We out.
Welcome to Basement Flavor.